Hi! Welcome to Politics for People Who Hate Politics. I'm your host, Lucy Steigerwald. I do believe we're on episode 8. I'm tired, I need to bathe, and there's a lot of depressing news in the news today. So I have assembled a lovely and charming and talented panel to discuss all of these things. The most important is, of course, the imminent death of Archie, as in Archie comics, but we'll save that for last because it's the most important. I have Joe Steigerwald, you know Joe Steigerwald, and we have Michelle Montalvo, who has had some trouble with cameras, but I think she's okay right now. We have M.K. Lords, who, I'm going to give her the proper description, which I'm totally reading, and I won't pretend I'm not. She is an editor at Bitcoin Not Bombs, which is an awesome charitable thing. And she writes for other sites, including her own blog, which we'll have her plug later. And she fire dances because I think she's a dirty hippie, but also a libertarian, so that's awesome. And I'm excited to have her. And finally, we have my friend Adam Berkeley, who I met in a history class many years ago when he said that he liked taxes. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? But he was mostly trying to piss me off. We've had many fun conversations since that date. So welcome to Adam as well.
Thank you.
He's so casual, he's not even looking at the computer, which is fine. Okay, I don't know. We're doing this live, and we're winging this. So, you know, there's just a lot of horrible news. What horrible news should we talk about first, Joe? I'm gonna put this to you as the fake ombudsman. I can't even say that word. What do you think we should tackle first here?
Well, I'd say the big story of today would be another Malaysian airliner going down.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fly on that airline.
Yeah, it seems.
I'm not gonna do that.
Even with these crashes and disappearances, the air travel is still ridiculously safe and all that jazz. I'm sure everyone's gonna be freaking out for the next.
I'm not freaked out about this in particular, honestly. It's just that I don't like sitting in a chair that's higher than Mount Everest. That kind of weirds me out. You know? Like, it's really high up in the sky. That's not right. So, yeah, Twitter was full of like, horrible neocons really just hoping that we get to go to war with Russia or somewhere now. And that was creeping me out a lot.
That's what I was most concerned with in this whole discussion. Is like, what are the foreign policy implications of this this plane takedown? It's really tragic, and it's like, well, what's going to happen next? It seemed like a lot of people were being really hawkish.
Aren't they always, though?
Yeah.
At this
horrible
point,
thing.
no one really knows. You know, with computerized passports, it's unclear whether there are any Americans on board. So I enjoyed Bill O'Reilly talking about why isn't President Obama all over this, and why isn't he home? Why isn't he at the White House calling families? But there's no families to call as of yet. So, you know,
that's
we don't know
bull,
yet. You know, and they would know. They generally know. So, you know, especially since this isn't a disappearance. So I think the foreign policy implications are only what the neocons will attempt to make of them in terms of, you know.
Which is like what they always attempt. Which is why it's like a cliche, of course, with crying wolf, but like, even if I could, you know, theoretically say, okay, somewhere in the world is a justified war, let's pretend, for the sake of argument, like the hawks of the world will never be able to convince me if that's the case, because they say it every single time about everything.
Every time a tragedy, every time there's, you know, anything. You know, immigrants crossing the border, on Mexico, you know, it's Russia, oh, it's Ukraine, let's fight both of them. You know, nobody knows what's going on. McCain is already, you know, all over the talk show circuit.
He just wants to fund some rebels somewhere. Any rebels somewhere.
I think he would have realized that didn't work in Vietnam. He ended up staying a long time in a Vietnamese prison, but he can't seem to figure that out.
He really can't. Actually, I can't. Do you remember, Adam? Did he actually change his mind on torture? Because I remember back in the day he was against it.
I think he did. I think
he did.
You know, they decided that it was worth the possible saving of American lives, a la Jack Bauer. So, you know.
Ah, yes.
He
Jack
watched
Bauer, our
episode
doctrine.
24, and it changed his mind.
One episode.
I
It's
think,
like, this is great TV.
Yeah, Zero Dark 30, he was like, see, it worked.
Oh, God. He just wants to intervene. Like, I don't understand these people, and it's driving me crazy all day. I was talking to one of my antiwar.com people today about this, and just like, I don't know how to write about war because the people who are for it in the most just 24/7 neocon insane way, like, they don't respond to any arguments against it. They believe that they can always know what the end result of an intervention will be, the way that, like, a liberal tends to think they can predict the consequence of legislation, or, you know, usually economic, but any other kind. Like, they believe that they can scientifically know that they'll know what happens if they intervene somewhere. And if you try to tell them that you can't know for certain, there's going to be some unforeseen consequences because people aren't robots and the world is not, you know, is not actually a game of risk. And they don't care about innocent people that much, or they sure don't act like it. So, like I write for antiwar.com every week, and I'm like, I don't really know how to write about war at all.
Well, I mean, everyone wants democracy, right? That's what it comes to. I mean, I'm being sarcastic, clearly.
Yeah.
And they're doctrinally required to feel like everyone wants democracy, even if we have to jam it down their throat. Like, if they just would just open their jaws wider and take it, then they would see they would be happier.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, but even talking about it in those terms, you have to talk about it like it's one person who just needs to take the democracy. And obviously, countries with millions of people are not like that. And that's another thing. They always self-defense arguments. They always talk about it, you know, the one-on-one metaphor, like, what if he came into your house and assaulted you or your wife? What would you do? Would you just lie down and take it? Like,
well, they're like the biggest conspiracy theorists of all time, like these neocons. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, like the scenarios that they sometimes come up with to justify these things. Like, these are very unrealistic. I mean, there hasn't been a war that's been fought on U.S. soil in, I mean, it's been forever now, and it's very unlikely to happen in the future. So, I mean, it's very strange the kind of conspiracy theorist mindset some of these neocons have. Like, there's these boogeymen in every corner, and every, you know, any country can attack us. Like North Korea, for example. They're making a big deal about North Korea for a long time, and it's like, do you know how bad the situation actually is in North Korea? I mean, it's ridiculous. They're in no shape to attack someone, especially as far away as the U.S. Like, it was a completely unrealistic threat. But they don't listen to facts. Like, they're not operating on facts and data and things like that.
I mean, I want to know what they want, because it's easy to say, like, well, they want to go to war with, everywhere. And I mean, don't they have to at least know you can't go to war with everywhere in the world? Like, there's got to be some sort of, I don't know.
Is that a rhetorical question?
I don't know. It derailed. The rant derailed. It fell off the tracks.
Well, and, you know, of course, there's always like the never waiving support for Israel too. It's like,
yeah.
anyone who's, you know, they invaded Gaza today, I believe.
Yes, they did.
They did a ground invasion. That's another lovely story that I'm sure will not result in any civilian casualties at all.
No, well, not any important ones, so it's fine. I mean, that's the thing with them. They don't believe in blowback, and yet they're convinced that the world is full of people who want to kill as many Americans as possible. And to some extent, there are people who want to do that, certainly. Terrorism isn't entirely imaginary. 9/11 was a big deal. Like, I can grant that. If you were, you know, in New York City, it was probably an even bigger deal. Like, that's fine. You know, I'll grant you that. But they can't comprehend the most basic principle of, like, okay, America or Israel did something, and this population's mad, and maybe they're going to do something violent, and, you know, to try to comprehend the motivation is not to say that violence is acceptable. It's like, I just feel like Ron Paul in that one debate in 2012 where he basically started to get like really cranky and was all, I tried to talk about moral objections to war with you fuckers and like, you didn't take it, so like fiscal didn't take, like I need to find the one Ron Paul thing I'm thinking of because it's so, I feel it's my spirit animal right now because if moral doesn't work, fiscal obviously doesn't work if you're into empire building. Blowback isn't real, but America is under siege. Like nothing America or Israel does, it can piss off anyone else in any justified way.
It's the same perversion that kind of, takes over brains of liberals when they try to introduce legislation where they feel like they can control every little aspect and they have every causality mapped out, and that the Republicans have the same thing with war, where they think they can move pieces on a chessboard or a risk board, like you said, and they'll know every possible scenario that happens. And the ones that do happen, like in Iraq, they had no planning for it all because it never occurred to them. They think they can just implement this plan and everything will just go directly according to plan because they're America and they're bigger and stronger than everyone else, and there's a complete disregard of history, and it's the same thing and just in a different realm.
They also Adam, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say just to Joe's point, neocons seem to view history as something to be changed or broken instead of something that guides them. In the sense of like they're like, well, the British failed in Iraq, but we can remake Iraq, or it's just there's just this sort of sense that like America, if we spend this much money on defense, surely we can remake the world in whatever image provides us the most oil and treasure. I think that it does ultimately come down in many senses to an attempt to secure American economic dominance. Whatever they cloak it in, it really comes down to we need to control resources and and I do think there's some sense of the America needs to have its empire.
The empire of the good guys. I mean, I've talked to conservatives, some of whom are even libertarian-sympathetic, like this Brit who writes for National Review, Charles Cook. Yeah. I was very disappointed when he seemed like the most reasonable man to ever be employed at National Review, that he had the exact same ideas about what America in the world should look like. And there's this idea of the benevolent empire, and that, well, they speak of it also as if like it's all about preventative power, like America is at home all big and tough, and that the existence of a big army is enough to keep everyone else in line. And they speak of it as if they haven't intervened incessantly, America. And that's the same with, there was a William Crystal article from a couple months ago that my friend Andrew Carell tore to pieces beautifully. And he was writing as if there had been no intervention since World War I, and it was all those damn war poets really soured people on war. Like he literally, didn't mention World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and all, the zillions of small-scale interventions. It's like it's never enough for them. And again, if there was a justifiable war somehow, I wouldn't be able to find it the way they talk about it, because every single one is we've got to do it, Munich, etc.
I think you see really quickly, like even after 9/11, and we're now 13 years or just under 13 years after, but you still see that because of the vast distance between us and pretty much any antagonists, they pretty quickly forget, like, that there is blowback, and even if they don't believe blowback in the first place, but this, it becomes very easy to have the long arm of America when you really aren't at any risk.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons you see European countries being unwilling to intervene, because they still remember the 70s and 80s when it was dangerous in certain, what we now consider very safe capital cities, to sit down at a cafe or go into a movie theater. And we had 9/11, we had Oklahoma City, but we've never really had that fear of just like, I can't go out in public. And even Boston, that was still targeted at a large event, we've never had this just, if I go to the movies tonight, am I coming home? And I think that it's very easy to forget how dangerous the world is for people who are connected by land or even with short distances by air to places that are pretty unstable. And then we feel we can go in and stabilize those areas.
Yeah, and one of the best resources I always point people to if I'm having a discussion about foreign policy or
Nah!
No.
We'll never know. We'll never know what that resource was.
the thing. You go to the primary resources and go through those stuff. You got to go through layers. But yeah, so it's Wikipedia. So I understand. I'm a writer. I don't like to rely on Wikipedia, all that. But disclaimer aside, there's this great page that shows all of the coups and all of the interventions that the U.S. has gone through through all of the wars, but even past that, all of the coups. I mean, like in Guatemala and Dominican Republic and all through South America. And it's really great to show these people who are denying or even maybe avoiding the topic entirely, like a lot of these liberals and neocons tend to do, about intervention. And we look around the rest of the world and why they're so afraid sometimes, why there's still that uncertainty and that fear in the populations of these different countries. Well, U.S. foreign policy has had a huge hand in that. I mean, it's very much influenced the scene, and it's made a lot of people, very afraid and unable to go to, just live regular lives. Obviously, I don't think all of the incidents are there on Wikipedia. It's definitely an incomplete resource, but it's enough of a list to make someone just kind of question and be like, whoa, wait a second, this is quite a lengthy list of things here that I didn't really know about, because they're not teaching you that in history, or where you should actually be learning about all of these other interventions aside from the major wars.
Ukraine is an excellent example of a kind of soft power intervention, American intervention, which goes awry. One of the things I always point to is El Salvador in the 80s. If you look at that country now, and all the time spent by the CIA and Special Operations Forces in El Salvador in the 80s, it's just that country is a disaster, not just because of our prison system and releasing those inmates, but also because of all the garbage that we foisted on that country and all the kind of counterinsurgency operations that we engaged in there as well. So
absolutely.
This idea that, to understand, I think there's this idea that these people in foreign countries are so foreign that they must only be mad because Muhammad told them to in the Middle East, or Karl Marx told them to in Latin America, or what have you. Instead of, we don't necessarily subscribe to that ideology or even recommend it, but these countries are full of human beings who might become resentful, if the CIA stages a coup, or there's carpet bombing or a couple of missiles here and there, or a constant drone presence just enough to make you psychologically freak out a bit. And I think that the warmongering right, I don't think they consciously think these people are not human beings, but they don't think they have the same type of human response that they would have if someone did that to them in their homes. Which again, good old Ron Paul, I became a Ron Paul freak too late. He tried to impart this most basic lesson in empathy, especially in 2012 when he was running for president. Not anything grand, just we would be mad if, for example, China started bombing us. Or as I like to put it, what if Amsterdam started bombing our, DC because our drug war was so fucking evil. Please. I'd be like, that's a great point, but I sure wish you guys would stop that. All right, not DC, but somewhere I actually care about.
I'm outside of DC. I'll be good to go.
You're totally right. It's less ideology and more just a rational reaction to our foreign policy. But the American propaganda machine has to say that it's ideology, because if you can convince people that these people over there are so much different from us that we can't, they can't possibly believe what we believe. They just can't see how great America is because they're not in it like we are. They're communists, they're being bombed by it. They're getting the direct result of whatever you call this
American ingenuity.
Yes, yeah. Nice little imperialism there for you. So
we're great at making stuff to kill people. So.
Mm-hmm.
I always think, actually, going back to the point about ideology, from the very limited people I've talked to and also the ridiculous amount of reading I've done, one of the scariest things about the public ideology in terms of like, oh, this is what these people think, is privately, especially in the CIA, they're extremely like, this is what we're doing it because of this, and the reasons are nothing more than we want to manipulate the power in that country.
Really?
They're
They don't tell themselves something nobler than that?
They're very open in being like, we need to control these countries for this reason, and it really has nothing to do with that they're communist or, so it's actually even scarier in a way.
I don't know if it's scarier, but it's certainly enlightening, I guess.
I mean, it depends. Do you prefer like naive, like John F. Kennedy, Vietnam, or do you prefer like, Noriega's our CIA goon? Oh, he's getting inconvenient. Let's take him out.
I mean, the end result is so often the same. I'm curious about motivations, but I don't know that they change all that much at the end of the day, and that's sort of the worst part. Which is also something I argue when, really, are you gonna feel better because your family got killed by Americans in Iraq who were trying, who had these professed noble goals? Would that make me feel better? If Amsterdam bombed and killed a couple of my family members and they were doing it because the drug war is a humanitarian nightmare. Would I feel any better? I don't know. I don't think so.
It's certainly not the point.
No, definitely not.
It's not that you feel better one way or the other.
No, I know. I realize that. I was trying to really go off of that.
To talk about how these guys blunder around with their ideologies, but a lot of times it's not even. They're literally just like, we're going to stick our fingers in that pie because we can.
Well, Adam, do you think that people think that they have nobler ambitions than that? Do you think people just?
I think when you talk about someone like, wars initiated by the executive branch, say like Iraq, even Afghanistan to some extent, certainly Vietnam, you have these very noble ideas. I think typically when you see these brush fire interventions, kind of CIA special activity stuff, whereas it's a very much a calculated idea, and there's not any noble thing going on. They're just generally like, we need to control this for X reason.
Yeah.
I started reading Dirty Wars, which is really good. I mean, very, very thorough research. It's very good, and it's very eye-opening because he's talking about, right after 9/11, the first part is all, Bush administration stuff. He's talking about Rumsfeld and Cheney, and these are people who were wanting to go into Iraq since the 70s. I mean, like, they came back into the political scene, and members of Congress were like, oh my God, you brought these psychos back in. We have to deal with these psychos. Like, this was the language Congress members were using to describe Rumsfeld and Cheney and some of the other people that were in Bush's cabinet, and they were worried even before 9/11 that these people would try to push us into war. I mean, they really had it planned out for, decades, and that's really scary to think about. It's really uncomfortable to think about too, but I mean, it really goes far back, and I don't know that someone like Rumsfeld had that whole kind of moral trip about it. Like, I don't know that it was even rooted in a kind of, oh, well, we need to help people, or we need to try to find some moral justification. He was pretty much just like, no, we need to go in there and take over. We need to, mess their stuff up. Like, it was just, it's very eye-opening. I haven't made it through the whole thing. It's a massive book, but it's so well researched, and I really recommend it. If you want to really understand kind of foreign policy, going all the way back, though. I mean, he goes like pre-Bush administration too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very thorough.
It's a miracle we didn't invade Iran too. After what Cheney was telling the Goldman Sachs bankers that was the original plan.
Yeah, they've been hankering for that for a couple of years, and they've never gotten to it. So
I've never heard it being actually admitted until. Like, I always thought that was kind of like a liberal fantasy or whatever.
Well, listening to MK talk, there's like, I don't know, like during the Bush administration, I felt much stronger tie to liberal friends because I was like, wow, you are right, our president is a piece of shit. Like,
yes.
I kind of wanted him to privatize Social Security, but that's literally all, and actually he was weirdly okay on immigration, which is strange. But like, you could just sit back, you could go to your punk shows, and you could rock against Bush, and it was so easy back then.
Yes. Well, that was where I got into like politics and got into like I hated Bush so much that like I thought I was a leftist, I thought, I was just like, yeah, man, fuck Bush, and like you said, listen to punk music and just like get the rage out and stuff. And yeah, like I ended up finding out about Ron Paul and stuff, and that definitely, and just learning about economics in general, just my limited understanding of it really kind of opened my eyes to like, the social issue stuff is good, but it's even sadder than that. That's what got me into anti-war activism, and after Obama got elected, that just completely disappeared, and that was like a huge part of what I believed in, like anti-war no matter who it is, it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat. It was really depressing to see that section just completely die out and become complacent and just whatever Obama does, like it's whatever.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm not going to pretend that all libertarians are pure and good, but generally speaking, the idea is to not immediately shift and start making excuses because your guy is suddenly in power, because our guy is never in power, which, it is the luxury of never having to compromise in that way. But, often, like, the salon liberals of the world act as if that's, like, fun, and it's not that much fun.
The scariest thing for me was how, just like with the neocons with Bush, where they're going, well, you don't know. My favorite thing is when you criticize foreign policy or military operations, inevitably someone brings out well, you don't know what they know, so you can't make a judgment.
Right, yeah.
Immediately the anti-war people with Obama, he's like, I'm going to close Guantanamo. It's like, and pretty much everyone is like, it's a good idea. We should get rid of this extra legal prison. It's a good idea. But immediately he's like, I don't know. He doesn't do it. He ups stuff in Iraq. He ups stuff in Afghanistan. And people are going, well, you don't know what he knows. You haven't seen what he's seen. Well, that's very convenient. But I can also see that it's a huge waste of money, time, and effort, and people. Mm-hmm. So I don't really need to see his classified intelligence in Daily Brief to know it's a stupid idea.
But you can't, you can't disprove that fully. It's a wonderful argument for them.
Yeah, but they're not working off of like a moral argument, which, it's pretty obvious that killing an innocent child in another country is wrong. It doesn't matter who it is.
I thought it was.
Like, it's just like basic, like, human decency, like morality, fuck that. Like.
That's why, like, libertarians have these sort of wanky arguments about the egalitarianism, moral arguments, practical arguments, and I think a lot of practical arguments it also does apply because, the knowledge problem, if nothing else. But I do think there is a downside. Purely practical, you can mold that. You can mold morals. You can have the worst moral principles in the world, I suppose, but you can also mold practical into, well, it's a defensive war. We've got to do this, and well, they, Israel has to defend itself, and it's, so those children being dead is not at all their fault. It's only Hamas's fault. And I don't subscribe to this idea that because someone else is behaving poorly, when your weapons kill like a child, I don't know, Hiroshima, Dresden. There's lots of good guys, supposed good guys doing this. And there's a whole type of argument that says it is entirely the fault of maybe it is entirely the fault of, Japan and Hitler and all these other people. But does that end the conversation about what the good guys did? Apparently it does to them. Like, it ends the conversation. And that's very
unsettling. Always justify the means for them. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you're the winner, you're the champion.
Well, you're the good guys, and I've asked a lot of neocons and more right-wing people, just how bad can the good guys be before they're not the good guys anymore? I'm not sure the answer, but I seriously want to know this, and they don't. They just, some of them legitimately just say whatever the U.S. does is fine.
It's 3 nukes, Lucy. 3 nukes is the answer.
Okay.
That's why we stopped at 2.
Those guys?
What did you say?
Well, I was going to say, what's the yield on those nukes? But the two things, one thing I've always actually liked about libertarians is that you do talk about war, or with a moral dimension. I'm so used to talking about it in a practical way that actually moral considerations rarely come up.
That's a little troubling.
It's very troubling. I find it troubling personally, even as I don't always talk about the moral considerations. The other thing that's interesting is what you talk about with the is how bad can the bad guys be? Well, it appears, and again, this is just sources, people I talk to, that there's about to be a lot of good guys being bad coming out. It's going to be a real mess. I know I've mentioned this to you, Lucy, but it looks like the most elite units have some serious issues on the discipline and massacring front, and so that's going to be a real disaster. So, it's going to be a PR disaster. It's definitely
probably not enough of one, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it going to be enough of a PR disaster if things come out?
From what I understand, Special Operations Command has been hiding this. It's SEAL Team 6. They've been hiding it. It's the Naval Special Warfare has been hiding it for years. So I think it's going to be a pretty big disaster, given how President Obama decided that everyone should know that it was SEAL Team 6.
Right.
Bin Laden. So it's pretty ugly, pretty damaging to recruiting when you find out that they've been just executing everyone on target. So.
Is this likely to come out? I mean, this is just people you've spoken to.
Newspapers are working on these stories, and they're getting a lot of pressure from Special Operations Command to not publish them.
They should send it to me. I won't give a shit.
There's a recent article actually on this website, SoftRep, which I follow, talking about why Bin Laden's body or photos of it have never been released.
Oh, I get so Alex Jones about that. Go on.
Apparently, every member of the assault team emptied their magazine into his body. So they were like, well, it's probably not a good idea to show pictures of his body. So
I definitely buy that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then there's varying rumors about whether or not the body is still in the possession of the government or whether it was actually buried at sea. So.
Seems like a very American thing to do, to empty off your magazines.
Also, there was like $50,000 or $60,000 that disappeared, and actually some of those SEALs were killed in a helicopter accident. So that
I heard about that.
Resolved itself, yeah.
I'm getting the conspiracy theories, I believe, crinkle on the spine right now, and I don't like that feeling because it feels very like.
And there's no doubt that there's a culture of a rampant culture of egotism and I would say larceny in the SEAL teams. So I think that they will definitely, hopefully, we'll find out about this stuff. I mean, Scahill's hinted at it a few times.
Yeah.
But they always joke that the coolest things in the Navy are the airplanes and the SEALs, and so they do everything they can to keep that stuff quiet.
Well, those are the biggest lies, really, when it comes down to. Those are really the biggest lies, so I really don't put anything past it. Like you said, Lucy, I go a little Alex Jones on some of that, too. I don't put anything past it.
I mean, competence. Thankfully, I don't believe,
I don't believe juice boxes are turning kids gay or anything like that. That's some, like...
It sounds familiar. I forget what that... Was that an Alex Jones
thing?
That
was an Alex Jones thing, yeah.
I mean, there's enough nasty stuff in food science that you don't need that conspiracy. There's already bad stuff going on.
Yeah, for real.
Well, my new conspiracy theory that I forget, I don't know if it was a crack list or something, where Bill Hicks is actually Alex Jones.
Oh, I've seen that one, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I like it. I don't know. I'm going to pretend to believe this starting now.
If only Alex Jones was that funny.
Yeah, right.
Every once in a while.
That's what gives him away. He's just not as funny. He's funny on accident instead of on purpose.
But when he was but his rant about Justin Bieber and Magellan is amazing. It's so funny.
I haven't seen that one.
Well, so speaking of conspiracy, let's just actually talk about this.
Okay.
This Malaysian Airlines.
Oh yeah.
I love how the American government says blown out of the sky. Like that's classy. I'm glad you guys could communicate so properly about the deaths of 290 some people.
Yeah.
That's what we're known for.
Yeah, we are classy.
I mean, I assume that just don't presume to know what happened to anyone because you so don't know what happened. That's all I ask.
That's the best part about Twitter, just seeing all the crazy accusations just immediately. Like people, the one I forget what it was, like the separatist general, like the fake. They figured out it's fake, but by the time some people figure out it's fake, like half of the rest of Twitter is still retweeting it.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't understand. Like, there's literally no restraint because I mean, I guess it doesn't pay. You know, you're trying to be the first person to get the real story, so just you hit everything until eventually you come across the right actual piece of information. But nobody knows, and nobody's gonna know because there's so much disinformation. I mean, Russia's gonna blame Ukraine, Ukraine's gonna blame Russia or the separatists, and it's just this is probably not gonna be like the flight that disappeared, but this will probably be a while before we actually figure out what happened.
Yeah, and I wrote an article about this for kind of my personal blog. I think it was after the Boston bombings about how, just take your time before you form an opinion about a lot of this stuff. And it was just kind of amazing how quickly everyone just seemed to know the answer. And there aren't answers immediately, and it's good to just kind of wait. And, I think the responsible thing to do is just kind of shut your mouth about it until you find out the details. If any come up, it's even hard to tell. Even in the first media reports that usually come out about any kind of tragic event, there's misreporting and all of that. And people immediately jump to conclusions on that. So yeah, I totally agree. Just kind of waiting it out and seeing what actually can be reported on. And especially in this situation, it's just there's no telling.
I think it's interesting in revealing, U.S. officials, as they say, being pretty certain that it was a surface-to-air missile. I think it's very telling about the types of assets that we are, engaging in that area. So I mean, that's as far as I get. I mean, I do believe that the aircraft was shot down, but as far as who pulled the trigger on that missile, I don't think anyone has any idea. We may never have any idea.
I mean, they have no idea what they could have been. A plane, it could have been like a mobile medium-range missile system. I mean, it could have been a bomb. Nobody really knows. I've just looked on Twitter, and now people are saying that the Ukrainian Air Force was escorting the plane for 3 minutes or something, and maybe, but all of this stuff. Tomorrow there'll be a whole new slew of things that people didn't know, and everyone's opinion will change, and it'll just keep going like this forever and ever until someone actually takes responsibility or finds the black box from the rebels.
Well, the Russians claim that they've been given the black box, but they would claim that. So, but they say that it's being taken to Moscow for examination. So that will certainly be interesting.
I'm sure they'll tell us as soon as possible.
I actually think
that it was the Ukrainians
are probably ransoming the black box because they've been complaining about not getting enough support from the Russians. So I'm sure that they'll try to monetize that if possible.
Yeah. Well, we seem to have lost Lucy.
Yeah.
Oh,
so anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know if she can even come back, but I mean, I guess we've kind of covered the MH Malaysian Air thing enough, and went off on a nice tangent about war and neocons. So probably it's time to get to Archie. If anyone has any thoughts on Archie and the female Thor and any other comic books.
Female Thor is great as long as it depends on how it's drawn. There's always the issue with female bodies in comics, and they kind of give with one hand and take with the other. They'll say, look, female character, strong female character, look at her breasts. And,
yeah, but that's comic books in general. It's all like exaggerated. Like no one looks like Thor, like the male version of Thor either, like with the giant ripped muscles. Like it's a totally unrealistic standard because it's a cartoon.
True, but I think that I was not really aware of this, but since my wife is a comic book artist, I've become aware that that's something that we have to kind of fight. We have to kind of fight within the industry because people use that argument, well, it's exaggerated, yeah, but the problem is, Thor is fine, because Thor is, not human, but, what about the next human character? We then kind of move the goalposts to a kind of ridiculous place. That's all I'm kind of feeling about
I've always noticed it. I mean, something like Batman, for example, there's varying degrees of how he's portrayed, but sometimes he's super beefed up looking.
Also an issue in comics. That's a growing issue, actually, there's male body issues from comic book, which is interesting.
Which no one ever talks about the male physique, then how am I supposed to live up to that, and how are all males supposed to live up to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can't get like so stressed out about it, but I could see your point though. Like I could totally understand. I think it's good to have realistic standards, especially if kids are reading it and they're looking up to those characters. But I don't know, like with comic books, I don't know that it's as I don't know that, at least I didn't when I was a kid, when I would read comic books and stuff, like I didn't look to those characters as like ideals as far as body. It was more of like a philosophic kind of thing. I was like I liked Storm in the X-Men. I thought she was such a badass, not really because of how she looked, but more of like how her powers and stuff like that. I think you do kind of have to be worried about kids looking up to real people though and having kind of unrealistic body standards with that. But I mean, how enforceable is some of this? I mean, I can't say that, like, I don't know, I guess I don't think it's as big of an issue, but
I mean, I'd rather have a conversation about it, and I feel like sometimes the conversation is avoided because people just say, oh, it's comic books, and so that's just I'm definitely not looking for anyone to enforce any standards on artists, but I think it's the conversation that needs to happen. I don't think it always does.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
Let's welcome back Lucy Steigerwald, our
My
host.
computer crashed.
That's all right, Lucy.
Oh.
I took over the show.
Oh, well, Joe.
You're back fast.
Sorry you had to do that.
No, we moved on to talking about Thor.
I literally checked to see if it was live, and all I heard was Adam talking about something about breasts, and I was like, oh, it's still live. Good.
We went wildly off topic. Things got out of control recently. Thank God for that.
So with Archie, I had this thought, and this may be crazy, but my first thought when I heard about it was are we trying to legitimize the gay friend by making him a member of government? And does that somehow, is that somehow an attempt to make it okay in people's eyes that Archie is defending his gay friend? Why does it have to be that he's is he a mayor or the governor or the senator or something? Why can't he just be his gay friend? Why does it have to have this government aspect?
Is the gay friend's a politician?
Yes.
I missed it.
Oh, I missed that too.
Oh, that's no good.
That's a really good point.
Yes, the gay politician also wants to, he's anti-gun, so it's like all the cliches that you can possibly fit into one.
Oh, yeah.
square.
Oh, no, I didn't remember saying that.
Like a
Yeah.
gay Brady guy. But, that's...
I mean, it's just...
Dude, comics... I promise not to offend anyone married to any comic book artist. Comics are totally equal to literature, but Archie is not literature.
I mean,
That's what it comes down to. And because literature
one...
doesn't have this kind of ham-fistedness most of the time. I mean, bad literature does, bad books do, but this is...
It's only one Archie, too, in the multiverse of Archies.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm only just learning about how many Archies there are.
Yeah, this is like the grown-up version of Archie.
So he's... I mean, but the other Archie might...
He's still alive.
Okay. That's
Archie lives, Lucy.
You can never kill off a money-making property. Ever. That's why there's 18 Batmans.
Yeah. I don't know why the girls were so obsessed with Archie, though. He was really not...
No one knows.
Maybe he had a really good game. I don't know.
Well, he clearly did, but,
I can't see it, but,
I don't really know what the other... There's Jughead, but he clearly is just...
Well, his name is Jughead, so that's not really a lady-killing situation.
Yeah.
I agree with that, it's
I think it's the advantage of being written by a man.
Yeah, he's written by a sexist, so.
So the Archie thing is so weird. It's like they're trying to cram in so many ideas into a story. I'm all for political comics. I'm all for any way you can inject politics into things. I think it's interesting. It doesn't always work, and sometimes it comes across as preachy depending on what work of art it is. But with the Archie thing, the more I kind of look into it, it does kind of seem, at least some of the themes in it, a bit preachy, but I mean, that's just combining a lot of things. It's his gay friend who's a politician who's against guns, and then he gets shot, and so it's you got the anti-gun message.
So
but
it's Harvey Milk, what's his name?
Yeah,
Brady,
yeah.
It's
a lot of things mixed together, and it's
So is the adult?
Very strange.
Did they do
I don't know how to feel about
adult Archie reboot situation? Because that sounds like a really easy joke, but I guess they did.
I've seen the panel before the fatal bullet is fired. It's all over the internet. It's like, it looks like they just they grabbed a picture of Jack Ruby and the picture of Reagan, and they just let's just draw this together. And,
Oh, and one more thing to add. He's also
Archie.
black.
No, really?
He's black,
Yeah, he is.
mustached.
Wait, what's that?
He's black, gay, a politician against the Second Amendment.
Maybe they're just
Wow.
trolling conservatives.
That's amazing.
So much that it's actually genius. I think I've changed my mind.
I mean, when was the last time
It's
anyone
actually
ever talked
brilliant.
about Archie? Ever in the
Well,
history?
that's also true. That's all. I mean,
Clever marketing move by Archie.
Yeah.
Clever.
completely trolling all the conservatives in the world. All right, I salute you, Archie Comics. Well done. But did we discuss Lady Thor at all?
That was where the breasts came into play.
Yeah.
That's where
We're
you.
mostly talking about her wonderful breasts.
I mean,
It is cool that we have Lady
the
Thor.
design of the character looked awesome. I
It
thought.
does look awesome.
It looks like a Valkyrie. It's cool.
Serious.
Yeah.
Like she looks serious. It's cool.
But that's the thing. When in comic book storylines like this, nothing is ever set in stone. Yes, it'll be a Lady Thor, and they'll figure out a way to do it, even though 70 other people have held the hammer and didn't become Thor or whatever. And then once they want to bring Thor back, they will. And it's just
What's the essence? This is the genius. Totally, everything is possible in comic books. Which
Right. So,
I mean, our Uncle John tweeted. What did he tweet, Joe? Did you see it?
it was
the
something
fe-
about
The feminization of America, and it's about Lady Thor. I'm like,
Oh,
who gives a shit, Uncle John? Good lord.
That is not the
Really?
feminization of America that you're talking about.
Dude.
He has a whole thing about that
I
where
could start a conversation about that, but it doesn't start with Lady Thor.
I didn't think it did. I didn't think it did. All right,
Unpleasant.
I don't know.
It
When he
starts
talks
with
about
cheese boxes.
Indeed, it does. And the soy milk,
The soy milk. Oh, the soy.
that estrogen.
Mess you up.
overprotective parenting or arguable. All right, fine, Uncle John, we can talk about that. But Lady Thor, oh my God, I don't know. It was really weird.
Lady
and then he was
Thor
like,
could beat up your Uncle John.
It was like the feminization of American literature in response to my taking issue with his tweet. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? Are ladies not allowed to have books? I don't know.
No book.
Conservatives, man, they're super weird, even when they're
That's
related to you.
weird. That's strange.
Isn't that the worst, having a conservative related to you?
Well, except for liberals, except for
Okay,
conservatives.
fair. That's true.
It's hard.
It's
hard. I got into a bit of an argument with my dad last night over immigration, and it's like, oh God, not this
Oh, really?
conversation. Yeah, in a Mexican restaurant, so it was
Oh, no.
really awkward.
Okay.
And he was kind of loud about it too, so I had to kind of be louder than no, I support everyone. Please, don't ruin my food. I love
They're
you,
like,
Dad.
oh, don't worry, we're from El Salvador.
It's fine.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not actually from Mexico, don't worry.
Yeah.
I was actually being overjoyed that our dad is actually he has his conservative knee-jerk moments, but there are plenty of libertarians, not even conservatives, who my dad is legit on immigration, and he's maybe Israel needs to calm down sometimes. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that, particularly in with the last few weeks of newsness, because that really doesn't seem to be things that the conservative-leaning folks are strong on.
The
Yeah.
Israel thing is unbelievable with them, but not to go away from comics too far.
Joe's totally not even paying attention. Joe! Are you
He's
there?
reading conservative blogs.
Is he?
No, I don't know.
The
You're not a
screen's
speaker.
frozen.
I know. I guess
Yeah.
I feel like the comic. Are you kidding me with this?
Yay, hang on.
Makes
This
it
is-
interesting.
Okay, Adam, I swear.
Who's next? Is this Survivor on Hangouts or something?
Well, I'm knocking on wood over here.
This is becoming a bit of a horror movie situation. Honestly, they're picking us off one by
I'm
one.
the killer.
Is it the NSA though? Who is it?
Probably. I'm not
Probably
very
the
far
NSA.
away, though. So they must be using me to piggyback because I'm the one that's closest.
I'll try.
Actually,
to
someone
explain.
drove into the NSA the other day while drunk. That was a whole
That's awesome. Except
On accident?
Yeah, so there's an exit off the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, and you can go up there. And actually, my dad's Iranian-American friend did that once. You can imagine the experience he endured.
oh, sweet Jesus.
Whoa.
Is going to say, because it's just like a random and kind of unmarked exit. But this guy got drunk and drove up there, and then apparently saw the NSA security police coming, turned around, drove down the ramp, and then was going north on the southbound lane of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. So you can imagine that he had a great time once they finally caught up with him.
Oh, is he free?
I do not believe he is free. I wouldn't be surprised if he won't be free for a long time.
Oh,
Plot
dear
twist.
Yeah.
Plot twist. It was Rob Ford.
It was almost certainly Rob Ford.
God. Noted Iranian American Canadian
Yeah.
Rob Ford.
This is,
Joe, we have a horror movie scenario here with the Hangouts. Like, I don't know what's happening with everyone being
I angered the internet gods or something.
They're angry.
Alright.
Maybe this router is messed up, but it doesn't explain the general wrongness that's happening.
You need to sacrifice an iPhone.
I was about to say, did you make any sacrifices?
I did. I forgot to sacrifice
Wow.
before I came on.
Firing squad. I've got the ammo, so you know.
As long as one Steigerwald's on at all times, it's fine.
It's a big thing in the Second Amendment. Like, community is the shooting of the iPhone, which I've never really understood. There's like many YouTube videos of iPhones being shot for some reason.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Why is that a thing?
Oh yeah, well, some people, I know that some people smashed their iPhones after the Apple Store stopped carrying the Bitcoin app.
Wow,
They halted all Bitcoin apps, and it did cause, I don't know if this is the
That's
same
very edgy of them.
incident, it may be something else, but I do know a bunch of Bitcoiners made videos destroying their iPhones.
we
So-
totally should have talked about Bitcoin.
How
at some
many of
point,
those?
but I'm
Two
bad
things.
at
How many of those
Bitcoin.
people were? How many of those were filmed on an iPhone? And how many people?
That's what I'm
immediately
wondering.
Regretted destroying their iPhone.
See,
There
like,
is
I
always
could
that.
never destroy a phone. Like, I have all my old, like, dumb phones, like, in a stash, just in case, you know, something happens. It's like, I could never even destroy a phone. Like, it's like, this is serious. But, I mean, yeah, it could be that. It could be something else, though.
Yeah, but I think if they just make on high-speed cameras, the bullet passing through the phone makes a cool shot, so people like doing that.
I mean, that would
Oh,
be
yeah.
tempting if you had a lot of
It's
Kind of
tempting.
cool looking.
spare phones.
Yeah,
Poor Michelle, once I kicked her off, she could never return. Man,
you're not allowed back.
the technical, I didn't know that would happen. I was hoping her technical difficulties would go away. The internet gods hate us today.
Michelle experienced Google Hangouts extraordinary rendition. So
Apparently so.
somebody nabbed her.
We have been going for a while.
So I'm trying to regain, even though I feel like I lost my throne of internetness from being kicked off. You guys could have been talking about anything while I was gone. You could have been talking about how the government is awesome while I was gone, and I would never know, except when I watch it later.
We were just talking about comic book boobs.
Okay, well that's okay.
I'm
then.
for. It's a good topic.
All right, I will wrap it up then. I will try to seize control. We can do a quick round of what are you enjoying this week that's not politics, and what am I enjoying this week? Well, let's see. All right, I'll start. Yes. No, I won't start. Joe, you start.
I'm enjoying nothing because there's no sports tonight. The World Cup's over.
What about Ninja Warrior, Joe? The greatest sport of our time.
I'm over that. That was a couple of years ago. I'm pretty happy for Germany though. I'm enjoying Germany's victory.
And Ninja Warrior. It's the only sport I care about, Joe.
No,
I don't know what other sport you could possibly be referring to.
you're not a Steigerwald.
Badass.
I agree. Thank you. I know. I watched hours of Ninja Warrior when that amazing woman kicked ass on the one course, and now the internet's was excited about that today.
First
Yes.
woman or first American woman ever?
So amazing.
I don't think any woman has ever been that good at. They've
first-
never beaten a qualifying course that was like the same course as the men's course. I don't think that's ever happened in Ninja Warrior, and it was really epic.
It was really epic.
It was, wasn't it?
Dude, she's so badass.
I kept waiting for her to fall, and I was like, she's done great. You know, if she falls, it's okay. And she just never fell. It was so good.
Even like she gets to like the very last thing, and they're like still talking about like she's so little. The space is 4 feet tall, and she's only 5 feet tall. Can she make it? She just like scurries up that thing like
And
no
she just
problem.
jumps through
Like
the air.
what? Like hits the button. Oh, it was badass. Y'all gotta watch it. Y'all gotta watch it. Yeah.
Feminists can all retire now because they're done.
That's
We
what
got
I
this.
thought.
Equal rights. You did it.
Yay!
Like, no kind of patriarchy is holding her down. Like, she's
That is
got
very
this.
true. Very true. Oh man, MK, you're here, and we aren't even talking about tedious libertarian infighting. What a waste!
Huh?
What a waste!
I've been enjoying our conversation so
I know.
far.
I was
so.
kidding. This is way better.
I've been enjoying the Weird Al videos. Oh my god!
Have
like,
you? I haven't experienced
so
them yet.
you have to. You have to. That so like yeah. What is good news? Happy things for the week. Weird Al videos. I liked him. I listened to him a lot when I was a kid, and
We all who didn't? Who didn't?
Yeah, yeah.
I know it was great stuff. And like now I don't listen to like pop music so much, so like I don't recognize some of the songs he's parodying, but they're still really
I
funny.
think that'll
Like he
be my
makes
problem
really
too,
shitty
actually.
pop music.
I'm old
like
now.
yeah. But it's like he makes terrible pop music like bearable and fun, and I love it. So that's cool. And he's doing a new video each day from the new album, so on a different media platform too, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah, he's changing it up. So
Return of Weird Al. That's good.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I've just been listening to the new Old Crow album, which I kind of finally has clicked after more listens than usual, and I've been watching a lot of Twilight Zone and X-Files, and not,
Nice.
and wanting to do that and not actually write anything because I'm in all of my writing is terrible mode, which is very boring.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through that. I know you feel.
But you gotta rally because I'll ask you to promote once we're done with this thing. Adam, what have you been enjoying this week?
I've been enjoying mobilitywad.com, which is all about fixing all of your various mobility issues, because I get excited to come
I have
home and
those.
watch videos about squatting and deadlift and just generally being kind of a badass, and so that's my thing right now.
All right, that's good.
I've been enjoying that, so check it out, mobilitywad.com.
Okay, that's good. We're good. Things that aren't politics, they'll never fail us. That's my favorite thing about them. All right. I never really. All right, for trailing off, and I lost my something when the internet hated me. So I think we'll just wrap this up, and God only knows what it looks like. But I think Joe probably had a handle on things while I was gone. I didn't have a handle on things while he was gone. I was lost. All right. If anyone wants to promote their works or say just something extra for fun, MK, tell the good people where they can read your stuff in the world.
So I'm the editor of Bitcoin Not Bombs. I also write for Bitcoin Not Bombs. I have stuff on Bitcoin Magazine and Attack the System, and I also have a personal blog called Extremely In Between, and that just kind of has random articles, but a lot of the stuff I write is Bitcoin related. So, and you can find me on Twitter at MKLords.
Actually, can you really quickly tell people about Bitcoin Not Bombs? Because we're here, and it's a good thing.
Yes. Okay, so Bitcoin Not Bombs is we're a non-government organization. We do a charity event every year called Hoodie the Homeless, where you can purchase a hoodie from us, and we will donate a hoodie to a homeless person. We do this in the wintertime, so what we do is we're accumulating donations now. You can also buy a t-shirt. We have like hoodies and t-shirts. If you buy, either one of those, it will donate that to a fund, and we'll, in the wintertime, we hand out hoodies to homeless people, and also other things they need, food, other basic necessities. So we do that. We also have different blog posts every week, a lot of just from op-eds to pro-Bitcoin, even anti-Bitcoin stuff is on there. So
that's fine.
Yeah,
Bitcoin things.
We have a Bitcoin hater as a writer, so so
really
we try
weird.
to keep it.
That's true diversity and ideological content. That's very good. I'm impressed.
Yeah. So and our focus is also on anti-war aspects with cryptocurrencies too. So check that out. BitcoinNotBombs.com.
That is awesome. Joe, do you have anything to add to the people? What are you doing with your life?
I wrote a draft for the Stag Blog, and I plan to publish it sometime next week.
All right, well, that's good. That's something. Adam, final words or self-promotion?
I'm currently working on a natural fitness and self-reliance project that hopefully I can put together in the next 6 to 8 months. So
That's
fine,
not.
too.
That's not a soundbitey enough. What are you doing with your life now? Tell
What I'm
us.
doing with my life right now, I'm getting dirty, running into trees while trying to climb them, and picking up rocks.
That's
And
all.
then I'm gonna write about that, and hopefully I can help some other people enjoy those things too.
That sounds okay. That's good. Thank you. And you can read my things at rare and antiwar.com and Vice. And of course the Stag Blog. And I'm being monotone because I think it's all terrible right now. But I know it's not really. So you should go look at those things. Okay, I have no idea how long this took. We kept losing and gaining guests, but in spite of that, I think it was actually a really good conversation. And I think that our two shiny new guests did a really awesome job. So thank you to them for joining us, MK and Adam. Thanks to Joe for being here in my stead when the internet was angry. And poor sweet Michelle, I'm sorry that I accidentally kicked you out of the hangout when you had technical difficulties, and then inviting you back failed. That was rough. But all right, yeah, politics for people who hate politics. Thanks for joining us there, audience, future audience. All right, bye.